Okay, good day now, my dear students. So again, we are going to discuss here another lesson, which is our lesson number 4. So our lesson number 4 will focus on solving quadratic equation using quadratic formula. So this is another method that we can use for us to solve quadratic equation. So this is the fourth one. First is by extracting the roots. Second is by using factoring. The third is by completing the square. And the fourth one is with the use of quadratic formula. So by the method itself, we are here going to make use of a formula for us to find out for the solutions of a given quadratic equation. So let's start it now. So ano ba yung tinatawag nating quadratic formula? So this is a formula that's being used in order for us to solve quadratic equation. So itong formula to, diniderive siya. So madiderive siya by using one method in solving quadratic equation, which is extracting the, completing the square rather. So if we're going to make use of completing the square in solving for uh, the solution to a given quadratic equation na ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0, so we can form what we call quadratic formula. So what is that quadratic formula? The quadratic formula is x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So x there is the one we are looking for, the solutions of a given quadratic equation. That plus or minus uh, there are the two solutions that we are going to get when we solve a quadratic equation. So we can do it by using quadratic formula. So whatever kind of equation, a quadratic equation given, that can be solved by quadratic formula. So maaari nating malaman uh, kung ano yung solution of that quadratic equation by using quadratic formula, whether you're given quadratic equation is an equation with c is equal to 0 or with b is equal to 0, or even both a and b or b and c are equal to 0, or if you cannot solve it by factoring, you can make use of quadratic formula. Or if you are having difficulty in solving quadratic equation by completing the square, you can also make use of quadratic formula, because quadratic formula is very versatile. So that formula, masosolve niya yung given quadratic equation mo. So that's how uh, effective that quadratic formula is in solving for a quadratic for a given quadratic equation. So so that formula is what we are going to use in order for us to solve to find out the solutions to a given quadratic equation. So how are we going to do that? So just like the first three methods, in order for us to do that in a systematic manner, we are going to apply certain steps. And still, these steps are steps that we are going to hide through an acronym or through a word or acronym na matatawag nating LOL. So, dalawa yung meaning natin ng LOL. I-relate natin yung dalawang yun. So, una, laugh out loud. So, yung una natin, laugh out loud. Yung pangalawa, that is League of Legends. Yan, yung isa sa usong-usong online game. So, League of Legends and laugh out loud. So, bakit nga ba LOL yan? Unahin natin laugh out loud. Ayun yung nagiging reaksyon ng isang tao kapag nakita siya ng isang taong napapahiya. Even through chat, through text, kapag may nasabi kang mali, So, ang tendency is napagtatawanan agad. So, ang nagiging cause is that napapahiya yung tao na tinawanan mo. Lalo na kapag sa personal yan, di ba? Nakita kang nadapa na tao, nakaupo ka for example, nakita mo nadapa yung isang tao. So, instead of helping that person, ginawa mo pa, tinawanan siya o tatawanan mo pa. Ay yung usual instinct natin na instead of helping that person na nakagawa ng makakasakit sa kanya or nakagawa ng bagay na hindi niya sinasadya. So, ang tendency is napagtatawa na natin sa we laugh out loud. So, yung kasi yung instinct nating mga ng iba sa atin. But ang dapat natin gawin doon is that we correct it. We correct it kapag nagkamali siya through chat or kapag merong nakita kang nadapa, for example, help that person. So, yun the best way that we can do. In that way, nakagawa ka pa ng maganda sa sarili mo, di ba? Nakagawa ka ng maganda bilang isang tao. And aside from laugh out loud, League of Legends. So, yung mga bata ngayon, lalo na yung mga ngayong generation, so, medyo uubos yung oras nila sa kalalaro ng online games. Dati, League of Legends, COC, nandiyan yung ang tawag doon, yung ML. Ngayon, yung ML yung pinaka-uso na online games. So, uubos yung oras ng mga bata, nagkakaroon sila ng mapaglilibangan na nauubos yung oras nila. Well, ako, I already tried that online game. Yun nga lang, nasa puso mo kung hindi mo talaga gusto, hindi mo naman mapipili sa sarili mo na magawa yun. So kahit na tinry mo, kung talagang wala sa puso mo yung paglalaro ng online games na yun, so wala rin mangyayari. You will not learn from it. So I'm not saying na I'm just only speaking to myself. So, ganon. So, instead of doing that, nauubos yung oras natin that, since you are still studying, so focus first on your studies. Or, pwede naman pa hapyaw-hapyaw. So, as long, if you are still studying and you have a class, so the first priority dapat is yung klase mo, hindi yung online games. So, that's the reason kung bakit ang steps natin in solving quadratic equation by using quadratic formula is LOL. Ano ba yung LOL? Unang L stands for locate the value of A, B, and C using the given equation after it has been arranged in general form. So look at this. So the equation here should be arranged in general form, in the form ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. So when it was arranged in that form, we can easily determine the value of A, the value of B, and the value of C. A is the numerical coefficient of the quadratic term, while B is the numerical coefficient of the linear term. And of course, C is the constant term. So the first thing we're going to do is arrange the given equation in general form. Then after that, locate the value of A, B, and C. Why? Why do we have to do that? That is for the second step. Sabi sa second step, on the given quadratic formula, I already given you the quadratic formula. So what you're going to do is just simply substitute the value of A, B, and C for you to solve the given equation, for you to solve the solution to the given equation. So substitute it, then isolate that given formula until you come up with the solution to a given quadratic equation. Then, after you found out the solution, The second L stands for let's check solutions using the given equation. So I've already mentioned you on how you're going to check your solutions. That is by simply substituting the value of the variable that you got doon sa original equation given. So that, again, if it satisfies the given equation, then you are correct on your solutions. So again, if you are going to solve quadratic equation by using quadratic formula, the steps you are going to apply is LOL. Okay, let us proceed now on answering examples about solving quadratic equation by using the quadratic formula. So let's have example number 1 first. So we do have x squared minus 7x minus 30 is equal to 0. So before we solve it using quadratic formula, the first thing we're going to do is to identify first the values of A, B, and C. Because those values will help us those values will help us to solve that quadratic equation with the help or with the use of quadratic formula. So we have first the value of A, which is equal to, that is the numerical coefficient of x squared, that is 1, and the value of B, the numerical coefficient of the linear term, that is negative 7. Then the value of C is the numerical coefficient or the constant term of the quadratic equation, that is negative 30. So with these values and using the quadratic formula, we are going to come up with the solutions to this given quadratic equation. So the quadratic formula is x is equal to negative b positive negative square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So with this given quadratic formula, all you have to do is to substitute the values of a, b, and c to the formula. Then let's start substituting. So after substituting it, we are going to isolate that given equation. So negative of b, since your b is negative 7, so negative of negative 7 is positive 7. Then plus or minus the square root of b squared, that is negative 7 squared minus 4 times the value of a, which is 1, times c, which is negative 30. Then all over 2 times a, which is 2 times 1. And from there, simplify natin what is inside first of the square root sign in the quadratic formula. So we do have here x is equal to 7 plus or minus the square root of negative 7 squared, that would be negative 7 times negative 7, which is equal to 49. Then minus or negative 4 times 1, that would be negative 4, and negative 4 times negative 30, that would be 120. Positive 120, kaya that's why it's addition here. Then all over 2 times 1, which is 2. So do not forget that it still has 2a in the denominator. So the usual is nakakalimutan yung denominator na meron pa pala dong 2a. So you still have to simplify it. That's 2 times 1, that would be 2. Let's continue it here. So we come up with x is equal to 7 plus or minus the square root of 49 plus be 169 all over 2. 169 is a perfect square. So the square root of 169 is So x is equal to 7 plus or minus square root of 169 is 13. Then all over 2. Then, since we do a plus or minus here, so we can come up with um, we can separate these two solutions here for us to find out for the solutions of quadratic equation. So let's separate this plus or minus here. So we do have first x is equal to 7 plus 13 all over 2, and the other one is x is equal to 7 minus 13 all over 2. So solve for the value of the values of the variables. We do have x sub 1, which is equal to 7 plus 13. That is 20. Then divide by 2, we come up with 10. That would be the first solution, or the x sub 1. Then for the right side of the equation, for x sub 2, so that would be 7 minus 13, we come up with negative 6. So negative 6 divided by 2, that would be negative 3. So the second solution is negative 3. So therefore, we can say that the solutions to the given quadratic equation na x squared minus 7x minus 30 is equal to 0 are positive 10 and negative 3. Okay, for you to understand it more clearly, let's have another example. Let's have example number 2. So we do have x squared plus 10x is equal to positive 2. So if you're going to look at the given equation here, so the equation was not arranged in the general form of the quadratic equation. So it's a must, before you make use of quadratic formula, you have to arrange it first into the general form of it, in the form ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Because if that is the case, you will be wrong. You might be wrong on getting the value of a, b, and c, particularly the value of the constant term. So you might come up with the value of it as 2, but you'll never know once it's arranged into general form, iba pala yung magiging value niya. So arrange natin it first. So from x squared plus 10 is equal to magiging x squared plus 10x minus 2 is equal to 0. Then from here, we are going to find the value of the variable of a, b, and c. So a is equal to 1, the numerical coefficient of x. Then b is equal to 10, the numerical coefficient of the middle term, while c is equal to negative 2, that is the constant term. So again, using the quadratic formula, x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So let us start substituting this value of a, b, and c to the given formula. So we do have x is equal to negative of b, that's 10. We do have here negative 10. So plus or minus the square root of b squared. So b squared is 10 squared minus 4 times 1, the value of a, then times c, the value of, times negative 2, which is the value of c here. Then all over 2 times 1. Then simplify first what is inside the radical sign. So that will come up with negative 10 plus or minus the square root of 10 squared is 100. Then negative 4 times 1 is negative 4 times negative 2 is positive 8. So since it's positive 8, that will be plus 8. So all over 2 times 1, that would be 2. So let us simplify what is inside the radical sign. So continue it here. So we do to have x is equal to negative 10 plus or minus the square root of 108 all over 2. 108 is a non-perfect square, but 108 has factors wherein one of its factor is a perfect square. So the right factors for 108, so that would be x is equal to negative 10 plus or minus the square root of 36 times 3 all over 2. So 36 is a perfect square. So let's bring out the root of it. So that will become x is equal to negative 10 plus or minus square root of 36 is 6. Then copy square root of 3 because since 3 is not anymore perfect square, so it will be left inside the square root sign. Then all over 2. Then from there, since we cannot since negative 10 and 6 we cannot since we cannot simplify anymore negative 10 plus or minus 6 because 6 here is still accompanied by square root of 3. So what we are going to do is just look at the constant term here at negative 10 and 6, both of them are divisible by 2. So what are we going what are we going what we are going to do is that we are going to divide both 10 and 6 by 2 to simplify it. So we'll have solution as x is equal to negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. Then plus or minus 6 divided by 2 is 3. Then simply copy square root of 3. So this is already acceptable as an answer because we cannot simplify it anymore. So that will be the final answer for now. What if your quadratic equation na given is like this? So let's have example number 3. So we do have 3x squared plus 5x is equal to 0. Looking at the given quadratic equation, so it is a quadratic equation where c is equal to 0. So even if z is equal to 0, sabi nga natin, lahat ng quadratic equation can be solved by quadratic formula. So walang pinipili na equation ang quadratic formula. Lahat 'yan pwede niyang ma-solve. So in the case of this, still we're going to find out for the value of a, b, and c because since it's already written in the general form of the quadratic equation. So the value of a is 3, ito 'yon, while the value of b is 5, ito naman 'yon. Then the value of c, of course, since there's no c, because we know that c is 0. Then again, using the quadratic formula na x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, let's start substituting the value of a, b, and c. So we do have x is equal to negative b. Negative of 5, that would be negative 5 plus or minus the square root of b squared. So pwedeng simplify na kaagad natin. B squared, that's 5 times 5, that would be 25. That's also to shorten our solution. Then minus 4 times, substitute natin 4 times 3 times c, which is 0 all over 2 times 3. Okay, when you let us first simplify what is inside the radical sign. So we do have here negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 25 minus 4, negative 4 times 3, that would be 12, times 0, that would be equal to 0. Diba? Any number multiplied by 0 is equal to 0. So since you are subtracting 25 by 0, we do not have to write 0 anymore. So that will be square root of 25. Then all over 2 times 3, that would be 6. Then from there, we do have x is equal to negative 5, then plus or minus, since 25 is a perfect square, so let's find out its root, and that would be 5. Then all over 6. Then let's separate this plus or minus here. Let's form two equations as to simplify the solutions to the given quadratic equation. So we do have x is equal to negative 5 plus 5 all over 6. Then the other one is x is equal to negative 5 minus 5 all over 6. Then simplify natin. We do have here negative 5 plus 5, that would be 0 over 6. While on the other side, we do have x, negative 5 minus 5, that would be negative 10 all over 6. Then 0 divided by any number is equal to 0. That would be x sub 1. So your first solution is 0. I've already mentioned to you that when you're given equation and if you're asked to solve a given quadratic equation where c is equal to 0, automatic yon that your first solution is right away 0, even if you are not going to solve for it. Ang kailangan mo lang kunin is the other solution. Dito, mas detailed na mapapakita natin that it's really 0 is one of the solution to that given quadratic equation. Then from here, x sub 2 now is equal to, since negative 10 is not exactly divisible by 6, but we can reduce it into its lowest term. Both 10 and 6 are divisible by 2. So to reduce it in lowest term, we'll have negative 5 over 3. So we do have the second solution as negative 5 over 3. So therefore, we can say that the solutions to the given quadratic equation are 0 and negative 5 over 3. Next. So next example. Para mas maintindihan natin ng mas mabuti. So let's have example number 4 here. So we do have 7x squared is equal to 9. So 7x squared is equal to 9. A quadratic equation where b is equal to 0. Ito always take note that when you are going to make use of a quadratic formula, dapat lahat ng terms niya ay on the left side of the equation. And it was arranged in general form of the quadratic equation. So in the case of number 4, yung 9 nasa right side. So we have to move first 9 to the left side of the equation. So that will become from that equation magiging 7x squared minus 9 is equal to 0. So it is a quadratic equation where b is equal to 0. So the usual na ginagamit natin completing the square. So since hindi naman perfect square yon, so mas madali kung gagamitin natin yung quadratic formula. So the value of a is 7. The value of b is 0 because b is 0 and the value of c is negative 9. So magkaiba yan doon sa kanina example So you have to be very vigilant because on number 3 the value of c is 0 while on number 4 the value of b is 0, or the numerical coefficient of the linear term is 0 while on number 3 the constant term is 0. So we have to look at it very carefully. So using the quadratic formula, x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So let's start substituting. So we do have x is equal to negative b, that is 0, and plus or minus the square root of b squared, that's 0, minus 4 times a, that would be 7, times c, which is negative 9, all over 2a, which is 2 times 7. Then x now is equal to, this will be cancelled out. That's because that's 0. That multiply ay positive negative. Square root of negative 4 times 7, that would be negative 28. Well, negative 28 times negative 9. So, ilan yung negative 28 times negative 9? So, try to compute it. Negative 28 times negative 9, so that would be negative 252. So, positive 252. Tama ba? So, plus 28, that would be 260, 280. So, that's positive 252, then divide all over 2 times 7, that would be 14. So, 2 is a non-perfect square. But 252 has factors wherein one of its factor is a perfect square. So, what would be the right factor for it? So, that will be x is equal to plus or minus the square root of, the right factors for 252 will be 36 times 7. Tama ba? So, all over 14. So, 36 times 7. So, that's 36 times 7. I guess that would be equal to 252. That is, 7 times 6 is 42. Then, carry 4, 7 times 21. That's 252. That's correct. 36 is a perfect square. So, we can bring out the root of 36. So, that will be x is equal to positive negative, then the root of 36 is 6, then 7 will be left inside the square root sign, which is square root of 7 all over 14. But looking at the numerical coefficient of square root of 7, that would be 6. That 6 and 14 are both exactly divisible by 2. So we can simplify the 2 here. So that will come up with x is equal to positive negative, 6 divided by 2 is 3, then copy square root of 7, all over 14 divided by 2 is 7. So that will come up with this answer as a solution to the given quadratic equation. So let's have this example number 5. So ano ba yung sa example number 5 natin? So let's have this given. Number 5, we do have 3x squared plus 7x plus 4 is equal to 0. So it's already arranged in the general form of the quadratic equation. So we can right away find out the value of a, b, and c. So we do have a, which is 3, b, which is 7, and c, which is 4. Then substitute the value of a, b, and c to the given equation, to the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula is x equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Ang technique dyan, para mas matandaan nyo ng mas madali yung quadratic formula, every time you are going to answer a certain problem in solving quadratic equation, you have to write first the formula. So kapag paulit-ulit mong isinusulat yon, natatandaan mo yon at natatatak yun sa isipan mo. So hindi mo siya nakakalimutan. So start substituting the value of a, b, and c. So that's negative b, that's negative of 7, that would be negative 7, plus or minus the square root of b squared, that's 7 squared, that would be 49, minus 4, shortcut na natin 4 times 3, or, na nga, para hindi 4 times 3 times 4 as the value of c, all over 2a, that's 2 times 3. Then, simplify what is inside the radical sign, that would be negative 7, plus or minus the square root of 49 minus 4 times 3, that would be 12, times 4, that would be 48. So all over 2 times 3, that would be 6. Simplify what's inside the radical sign, continue it here. We do have x is equal to negative 7, then plus or minus the square root of 49 minus 48, that would be 1 all over 6. So we know that 1 is a perfect square. So we can simplify it as x is equal to negative 7 plus 1 plus or minus 1 all over 6. So let's separate the two, this positive negative here, for us to solve for the solutions of a quadratic equation. So we do have the first equation as x is equal to negative 7 plus 1 all over 6, and the other one is x is equal to negative 7 minus 1 all over 6. So simplify muna natin numerator, come up with the value of the first solution, x sub 1, that's negative 7 plus 1, that would be negative 6. So if this is negative 6, negative 6 divided by 6, that would be negative 1. So the first solution is negative 1. While on the other side, we do have negative 7 would be negative 8. And negative 8 is not exactly divisible by 6, but both 8 and 6 are exactly divisible by 2. So we are going to apply getting the lowest term of that given fraction. So we do have x sub 2, which is equal to negative 8 divided by 2, that would be negative 4, over 6 divided by 2 is 3. So we do have 4 over 3 here. Then, the solution for the second solution for that equation is negative 4 over 3. So therefore, the solutions are negative 1 and negative 4 over 3. So that's how we solve quadratic equation using quadratic formula.